What happens when one of music's most beloved legends walks onto a talk show stage, expecting a celebration of his incredible career, only to be met with disrespect, condescension, and outright hostility from a host who seems more interested in tearing him down than lifting him up? In just 34 seconds, a single dismissive comment would ignite a firestorm that would see Lionel Richie, the man who gave us Hello and All Night Long, forcibly removed from Kelly Clarkson's stage in what can only be described as one of the most shocking moments in daytime television history. The morning started like any other taping day. Lionel Richie arrived at the studio with his usual grace and humility, ready to discuss his new music and share stories from his 5-decade career. The audience was buzzing with excitement. After all, this was Lionel Richie, a man who has sold over 100 million records worldwide, won 4 Grammy Awards, and created some of the most timeless songs in music history. People in the crowd were already singing along to his hits, playing over the speakers, smiling and swaying in their seats. But from the moment Lionel walked out onto that stage, something felt off. Kelly Clarkson greeted him with what can only be described as a forced smile, the kind that doesn't quite reach the eyes. There was no warmth in her handshake, no genuine excitement in her voice. It was perfunctory, robotic even. The audience didn't seem to notice at first, but Lionel did. You could see it in the way his smile faltered just slightly, the way his eyes searched hers for some sign of genuine welcome. They sat down, and Kelly wasted no time launching into her first question. But it wasn't the kind of question you asked someone of Lionel's stature. It wasn't about his music, his legacy, or his contributions to the world. Instead, Kelly leaned back in her chair with an almost dismissive air and said, "So Lionel, let me ask you something. Do you ever feel like your music is just, elevator music at this point? Like something people hear in the background while they're waiting for something better?" The audience gasped. Several people exchanged shocked glances. Lionel's face registered surprise, but being the professional he is, he tried to laugh it off. "Well, Kelly," he said with that characteristic gentle voice, "I think my music has touched people in meaningful ways throughout their lives. Weddings, anniversaries, special moments. That's what I'm most proud of." Kelly waved her hand dismissively, as if swatting away his words like they were nothing. Right, but come on. Don't you think that's just nostalgia talking? Like, people aren't actually listening to your stuff anymore. They're just remembering when they used to listen to it." Lionel's smile was starting to look strained now. "I respectfully disagree," he said, maintaining his composure. "I just finished a world tour where thousands of people came out every night to sing these songs with me. Young people, old people, families. The music still resonates." Kelly let out this little laugh, this condescending sound that made it clear she wasn't buying it. "A world tour," she repeated, making air quotes with her fingers. "I mean, sure, but let's be honest. Those are mostly older folks trying to relive their youth, right? It's not like you're filling stadiums with young fans who actually care about what you're doing now." The tension in the studio was becoming palpable. Audience members were shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Some were whispering to each other, clearly disturbed by the direction this interview was taking, but Kelly seemed oblivious to the room's energy. Or perhaps she simply didn't care. Lionel took a deep breath, and you could see him making a conscious choice to remain gracious. "Kelly, I've been blessed to have a career that spans generations. Yes, I have fans who have been with me from the beginning, but I also have fans who discovered my music through their parents, through movies, through covers by other artists. Music is timeless when it comes from the heart." "Timeless?" Kelly repeated, and there was something almost mocking in her tone. "That's a nice way of saying dated, isn't it? I mean, let me ask you this. When was the last time you had a hit, like a real hit, not just something that your existing fans bought out of loyalty?" Lionel's jaw tightened slightly. "Success isn't just measured by chart positions," he said, his voice still calm but with a hint of steel now. "It's measured by impact, by connection, by the lives you touch." Kelly leaned forward, her elbows on her knees, and looked at Lionel with what can only be described as fake sympathy. "Look, I'm just being real with you, okay? Because somebody needs to. The music industry has moved on. The sound has changed, and maybe, just maybe, you should consider that your time has passed." The audience was dead silent now. This wasn't playful banter. This wasn't a host challenging a guest in good fun. This was something else entirely. This was mean-spirited, unprofessional, and completely uncalled for. Lionel sat up straighter in his chair. "Kelly, I came here today to have a conversation about my music and my career. I didn't come here to be disrespected." Kelly threw her hands up in the air like she was the victim. Disrespected? Oh, come on. I'm just asking questions. I'm just being honest. Isn't that what good journalism is about? Good journalism, Lionel said, his voice still measured but firm, involves respect for your guest. It involves actually listening to their answers instead of just waiting for your next opportunity to tear them down. Kelly's face hardened. Excuse me? I don't tear anyone down. I'm one of the nicest hosts in the business. Everyone says so. Then maybe you should start acting like it, Lionel replied. The studio went completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Kelly's face was turning red now, her expression shifting from fake concern to genuine anger. I'm acting like it? I invited you on my show. I gave you a platform. Do you know how many people would kill to sit in that chair? Lionel shook his head slowly. A platform isn't a gift if you're only using it to make yourself look better by making your guests look worse. That's not generosity, Kelly. That's exploitation. Kelly stood up abruptly, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. Exploitation? Are you serious right now? You're a has-been who nobody cares about anymore, and I'm giving you airtime, and you have the audacity to call me exploitative? The audience audibly gasped. Several people put their hands over their mouths in shock. Lionel remained seated, looking up at Kelly with a mixture of disappointment and dignity. I've been in this industry for over 40 years, he said quietly. I've worked with legends. I've been blessed with success beyond my wildest dreams. And in all that time, I've never encountered someone so determined to be cruel for no reason. Cruel? Kelly's voice was rising now, shrill and defensive. I'm not being cruel. I'm being honest. Maybe if more people were honest with you, you'd understand that your music is irrelevant now. Nobody wants to hear another song about hello or dancing on the ceiling or whatever other cheesy nonsense you're peddling. Lionel stood up slowly, with the kind of grace and composure that only comes from true class. My music has brought joy to millions of people around the world, he said, his voice steady despite the hostility being directed at him. It's been there for them during their happiest moments and their saddest. It's soundtracked proposals and weddings and anniversaries. It's helped people through breakups and loss. And if that makes it cheesy to you, then I feel sorry for you. Kelly pointed at him, her finger jabbing the air aggressively. Don't you dare feel sorry for me. I've won 3 Grammys. I've sold millions of records. I have a successful talk show. What have you done lately? I've remained a decent human being, Lionel replied simply, which is apparently more than you can say. Kelly's face went from red to purple. She turned to someone off camera, presumably a producer, and shouted, Get him out of here. Get him off my stage right now. I don't have to stand here and be insulted by someone who hasn't had a relevant song since the 80s. Lionel held up his hand. I'll leave on my own, thank you. I don't need to be escorted out like a criminal. He turned to the audience, many of whom were now openly upset, some even crying. Thank you for your kindness and for supporting my music over the years. It means more to me than you'll ever know. The audience erupted in applause. People were standing up, clapping, some even cheering for Lionel. It was clear where their sympathies lay. Kelly looked around, seeming to realize for the first time that she had badly miscalculated. The room was against her, but instead of backing down, instead of apologizing, Kelly doubled down. Oh, wonderful, she said sarcastically. Give him a standing ovation for what? For being past his prime? For refusing to accept reality? An audience member shouted out, for being a legend and for having more class than you'll ever have. Kelly whirled around to face the audience. Excuse me? You want to say that again? The same audience member, a middle-aged woman in the front row, stood up. I said Lionel Richie is a legend, and he has more class than you'll ever have. This is disgusting. We came here to see him, not to watch you tear him apart for your own ego. Other audience members started voicing their agreement. This is terrible, someone yelled. You should be ashamed, another person shouted. The crowd was turning against Kelly in real time, and she was visibly losing control of the situation. Kelly's voice got even louder. Fine, you all want to defend him? Then you can leave too. Everyone out. This taping is over. But Lionel wasn't done. He turned back to face Kelly, his expression sad rather than angry. Kelly, I don't know what's going on in your life that would make you treat another person this way. Maybe you're going through something difficult. Maybe you're feeling insecure about your own legacy. I don't know. But this isn't who you have to be. You're talented. You have a beautiful voice. You've achieved incredible things. You don't need to diminish others to feel big. For just a moment, something flickered across Kelly's face. Shame, perhaps, or recognition, but it was gone as quickly as it appeared, replaced by stubborn defensiveness. "Get out," she said, her voice lower now but no less hostile. "Just get out." Lionel nodded once, with dignity, and began walking toward the exit. The audience was still applauding him, still showing their support. Some people were shouting encouragement. "We love you, Lionel! You're amazing! Don't let her get to you." As Lionel reached the edge of the stage, Kelly's voice rang out one more time. "And don't come back. You or any other washed up has-been who thinks they deserve special treatment just because they used to be famous." Lionel paused, his back still to Kelly. For a moment, it seemed like he might turn around, might say something else, but instead, he simply raised his hand in a wave to the audience, a gesture of gratitude and farewell, and walked off the stage with his head held high. The moment Lionel disappeared from view, chaos erupted. Audience members were standing up, arguing with each other and with production staff. Some people were demanding refunds. Others were saying they were going to contact the media. Kelly stood in the middle of the stage, looking around at the disorder she had created. And for the first time, she seemed to realize the magnitude of what had just happened. A producer rushed onto the stage and started speaking urgently to Kelly, but she pushed him away. "I don't want to hear it," she snapped. "He disrespected me. He came on my show and disrespected me." But the producer was insistent, gesturing wildly at the angry audience, at the cameras that had captured everything, at the disaster unfolding in real time. Kelly's face went pale as the reality seemed to sink in. In the hallway backstage, Lionel was surrounded by staff members, some apologizing profusely, others looking shocked and embarrassed. Lionel, ever gracious, simply smiled and told them it wasn't their fault. "These things happen," he said gently. "I just hope Kelly finds some peace." One young production assistant, clearly distraught, said, "Mr. Richie, I'm so sorry. That was completely inappropriate. We've never seen anything like that before." Lionel put his hand on the young man's shoulder. "It's okay," he said. "I've been in this business a long time. I've seen all kinds of behavior. What matters is how we respond to it. We can choose to respond with anger, or we can choose to respond with grace. I choose grace." Back on the stage, Kelly was finally being ushered off by producers. The audience was being told the taping was canceled and they would be contacted about rescheduling. But many people were refusing to leave, saying they wanted to speak to management, wanted to file complaints, wanted someone to know how appalled they were by what they had witnessed. In the makeup room, as Lionel prepared to leave the building, a makeup artist who had worked with him earlier approached tentatively. "Mr. Richie," she said softly, "I just want you to know that we all think you handled that with so much class." What she said was unforgivable. Lionel smiled kindly at her. "Thank you, sweetheart. That means a lot. But don't be too hard on her. Hurt people hurt people. I don't know what she's dealing with, but I hope she finds her way through it." The makeup artist looked like she might cry. "You're too kind," she said. "Most people in your position would be furious." "Being furious takes energy," Lionel said with a slight smile. "I'd rather spend my energy making music and being grateful for the life I've been blessed with." As Lionel was gathering his things to leave, a security guard approached and said, somewhat awkwardly, that Miss Clarkson had requested he be escorted out of the building immediately. The implication was clear. She wanted him removed, wanted him gone, wanted to erase his presence as quickly as possible. Lionel looked at the security guard, a young man who looked deeply uncomfortable with his assignment, and said kindly, "It's all right. I was leaving anyway. You're just doing your job." As they walked through the corridors toward the exit, staff members kept stopping what they were doing to watch Lionel pass. Some waved, some smiled sympathetically, some looked away, embarrassed by association with what had happened. But Lionel acknowledged each person with a nod, a smile, a moment of human connection. When they reached the exit, the security guard held the door open and said quietly, "For what it's worth, sir, my mom is your biggest fan. She's going to be heartbroken when she hears about this." Lionel paused and turned to the young man. "What's your mom's name, Teresa?" the guard said, surprised by the question. Lionel smiled. "Tell Teresa that I said hello, and that people like her, people who have supported my music over the years, are the reason I do what I do. Tell her not to be heartbroken. Tell her I'm doing just fine." The security guard's eyes welled up slightly. "I will, sir. Thank you." And with that, Lionel Richie walked out of the building and into the bright California sunshine, leaving behind one of the most shocking confrontations in talk show history, but doing so with the same dignity and grace that had defined his entire career. Behind him, inside the studio, Kelly Clarkson was in her dressing room, the reality of what had happened finally hitting her. Producers were trying to figure out damage control. Publicists were being called. Legal teams were being consulted. The footage existed. The audience had seen everything. There was no way to undo what had been done. But this story isn't about what happened next, about the fallout or the consequences or the public relations nightmare that would follow. This story is about what happened in those brutal minutes on that stage, when one of music's most beloved figures was subjected to treatment that no one, famous or not, should ever have to endure. It's about the moment when Kelly Clarkson, for reasons known only to her, decided that she would use her platform not to celebrate a legend, but to attempt to tear him down. And it's about the moment when Lionel Richie, faced with hostility and disrespect, chose to respond not with matching anger, but with the kind of grace and dignity that reminded everyone watching exactly why he's been beloved for over 4 decades. From the very first question, it was clear this wasn't going to be a normal interview. Kelly's tone was off, her energy was wrong, and her questions were designed not to illuminate but to diminish. When Lionel tried to share the genuine impact his music has had on people's lives, Kelly mocked him. When he tried to explain the timeless nature of true artistry, she dismissed him as irrelevant. The elevator music comment was just the beginning. It was a deliberately insulting way to frame a question, designed to put Lionel on the defensive from the start. But Lionel, being the professional he is, tried to answer with grace, tried to elevate the conversation, tried to find common ground. Kelly wasn't interested in common ground. She was interested in making herself feel superior by making her guest feel small. Every answer Lionel gave was met with dismissal, with mockery, with condescension. The air quotes, the fake sympathy, the leading questions, all of it was designed to humiliate. When Lionel pushed back, when he finally called out the disrespect for what it was, Kelly's response was to escalate. She couldn't handle being challenged, couldn't handle being called out on her behavior, couldn't handle the idea that maybe, just maybe, she was in the wrong. The has-been comment was the breaking point. Calling someone a has-been, especially someone of Lionel Richie's stature, someone who has contributed so much to music and culture, wasn't just rude. It was cruel. It was mean-spirited. It was unnecessary. And Lionel's response was perfect. He didn't match her energy. He didn't call her names. He didn't stoop to her level. Instead, he spoke a simple truth. He's remained a decent human being. That one line cut through all the noise, all the hostility, all the posturing, and got to the heart of what was really happening. This wasn't about music or relevance or chart positions. This was about basic human decency. This was about how you treat another person, especially when you have power and they're in a vulnerable position on your stage, in your studio, surrounded by your crew. When Kelly called for Lionel to be removed, when she tried to have him escorted out like he'd done something wrong, the audience's reaction said everything. They stood and applauded him. They voiced their support. They made it clear that they saw through what was happening, that they recognized the difference between the antagonist and the victim in this scenario. Kelly's attempt to turn the audience against Lionel backfired spectacularly. Instead of rallying to her defense, they rallied to his. They called her out. They stood up to her. They refused to be complicit in what was happening. And even then, even as Kelly was losing control of the situation, even as the audience was openly opposing her, Lionel tried to extend an olive branch. He acknowledged that maybe she was going through something, maybe she was struggling, maybe there was a reason for her behavior beyond simple cruelty. That moment of empathy, that willingness to see Kelly's humanity even as she was refusing to see his, that's what separates a legend from everyone else. That's what grace looks like. That's what dignity looks like. Kelly's refusal of that olive branch, her insistence on doubling down, her final parting shot about washed-up has-beens, it only served to highlight the contrast between these two people. One was secure enough in himself to be kind even when being attacked. The other was so insecure that she needed to attack to feel powerful. The chaos that erupted after Lionel left, the audience anger, the staff embarrassment, the producer panic, all of it was the natural consequence of what Kelly had created. You can't treat people badly and expect everyone to just go along with it. You can't abuse your power and expect no pushback. But again, even in the aftermath, even in the hallway backstage, even when he had every right to be angry and vindictive and petty, Lionel chose grace. He comforted the staff members who apologized to him. He assured them it wasn't their fault. He expressed hope for Kelly's well-being. The interaction with the young production assistant was particularly telling. Here was someone clearly upset about what had happened, clearly embarrassed to be associated with the show in that moment. And Lionel's response was to comfort him, to share wisdom about choosing grace over anger. The same with the makeup artist, the security guard, everyone Lionel encountered as he was leaving the building. He had a kind word, a moment of connection, a gesture of humanity for each of them. He wasn't performing for cameras now. This was just who he is. The security guard story is especially poignant. Here was someone being asked to escort Lionel out, essentially being used as part of Kelly's attempt to assert dominance even in defeat. And Lionel's response was to ask about the guard's mother, to send her a personal message, to make a human connection in what could have been a humiliating moment. That's the difference between someone who's famous and someone who's legendary. Fame can be bought, manufactured, marketed. But legendary status, the kind where you're beloved across generations, where your music soundtracks people's most important moments, where your name is synonymous with grace and talent and humanity, that can only be earned through decades of consistent excellence and decency. Throughout this entire ordeal, from the first insulting question to the final walk out of the building, Lionel Richie never lost his composure, never became the villain. Kelly seemed to be trying to make him, never gave anyone reason to doubt the kind of person he is. Kelly, on the other hand, revealed something about herself that no amount of public relations spin could undo. She revealed that when given the opportunity to celebrate someone, she chose to tear them down. When given the chance to create a memorable, positive moment, she chose to create a memorable, negative one. When faced with grace and dignity, she responded with hostility and ego. The audience saw it, the staff saw it, the cameras captured it, and Lionel handled it with the kind of class that reminded everyone why he's Lionel Richie, why his music has endured, why he's beloved by millions. This wasn't just a talk show moment gone wrong. This was a masterclass in how to handle adversity, how to maintain dignity in the face of hostility, how to respond to cruelty with grace. Lionel didn't need to fight back with equal aggression. His character did all the fighting for him. In those 34 seconds, when Kelly made her first dismissive comment about elevator music, she set in motion a chain of events that would showcase the stark difference between a true legend and someone who's merely famous. She thought she was in control. She thought she could dictate the narrative. She thought she could diminish someone of Lionel's stature and get away with it. She was wrong on all counts, because at the end of the day, respect isn't something you can demand. It's something you earn. And on that stage, in that moment, it became crystal clear who had earned respect and who had squandered it. Lionel Richie walked out of that building with his dignity intact, his legacy untarnished, and his character proven once again. He showed everyone watching how a real professional handles an unprofessional situation, how a real artist responds to someone trying to diminish their art, how a real legend conducts themselves even when being treated poorly. And that, more than any song he's ever written, more than any award he's ever won, more than any accolade he's ever received, that moment of grace under fire, that choice to be kind when he could have been cruel, that decision to take the high road when the low road would have been so much easier, that's why Lionel Richie is legendary. Kelly Clarkson tried to make him look small. Instead, she made him look even bigger. She tried to expose him as washed up. Instead, she exposed her own insecurities. She tried to win by making him lose. Instead, she lost by trying to make him lose. Because here's the thing about grace and dignity and class. They can't be faked. They can't be manufactured. And they can't be torn down by someone who doesn't possess them. They shine brightest when tested, when challenged, when put under pressure. And Lionel Richie's grace, dignity, and class shone so bright that day that it illuminated everything around it, including Kelly Clarkson's behavior, making it impossible to ignore, impossible to justify, and impossible to defend. This was supposed to be a simple talk show appearance, a legendary artist coming on to promote new music, share some stories, connect with fans. It should have been easy. It should have been fun. It should have been a celebration. Instead, it became a testament to character, a lesson in grace, and a reminder that how you treat people matters more than anything else. No amount of talent, no amount of success, no amount of fame gives you the right to treat another human being with disrespect. Lionel Richie knows that. He's always known that. It's why he's been able to sustain a career spanning 5 decades. It's why people of all ages still connect with his music. It's why he's beloved not just as an artist, but as a person. And on that day, when Kelly Clarkson tried to take him down, when she launched her unprovoked attack, when she used her platform for cruelty instead of celebration, Lionel reminded everyone watching exactly who he is and what he stands for. He stands for grace. He stands for dignity. He stands for treating people with respect and kindness regardless of how they treat you. He stands for being the bigger person, even when the other person is trying to make you feel small. That's the story of what happened when Lionel Richie was kicked off Kelly Clarkson's show. Not a story of A has been being put in his place, as Kelly seemed to intend, but a story of a legend, showing everyone the meaning of class, and a host revealing her true character in the process. The cameras captured every moment. The audience witnessed every exchange. The staff members saw everything that happened before, during, and after. And every single person who was there that day knew they had witnessed something significant, something that would be talked about for years to come. Not because of any shocking revelations about Lionel's past, not because of any scandalous behavior on his part, but because of how he conducted himself with such grace and dignity in a situation specifically designed to provoke the opposite reaction. Kelly gave him every reason to lose his temper, to lash out, to match her energy, and he refused. Every single time, he chose the higher path. Even when calling out her behavior, he did so with measured words and controlled emotion. Even when standing up for himself, he did so without tearing her down in return. That's the power of true character. It doesn't need to prove itself through aggression. It proves itself through consistency, through choosing grace even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. And when Lionel walked out of that building, when he left behind the chaos and the anger and the hostility, he did so knowing he had stayed true to himself. He hadn't become someone else in order to fight back. He hadn't compromised his values to score points. He hadn't let Kelly's behavior dictate his own. He remained Lionel Richie, legendary artist, gracious human being, class act. And that's exactly what Kelly Clarkson couldn't touch, no matter how hard she tried.